Sevgili katılımcılar, tekrar hoş geldiniz. Şimdi Christina Lovelock moderatörlüğündeki Product Ownership in Agile World temalı panelimiz ile başlıyoruz. Panelde Fabrizio, Althea, Linda ve Christina olacak. Sözü şimdi Christina Lovelock'a bırakıyorum.
Hello, everyone. Hello to everyone joining from Turkey today. But we also have delegates from all over the world. Hello, wherever you are today. We're delighted to welcome you to this global panel discussion. Our panelists are joining from South Africa, Brazil, Romania, and the UK. I'm Tina Lovelock, your host for this session, and I'm joined by a wonderful panel of Althea, Fabrizio, Christina and Linda. They bring different perspectives, but something they all have in common is significant experience and expertise in both business analysis and product ownership. It's usual at a panel discussion to hear the background and biography of each person on the panel, but we decided we'd like to do something a bit different for you. We'd like to help you to get to know us in a slightly different way. You can still read about our background on the conference website or via LinkedIn, where the panel would love to connect with you. But what we're going to do today is tell you a bit about what we're finding interesting or exciting at the moment and mention the topics that we're most passionate about. So Fabrizio, I'm going to start with you. What topics or ideas are you finding exciting at the moment? You are still on mute.
Someone had to do that, right?
That's fine.
That was me. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm glad to be participating in this great event, and good morning for every one of you there, or good afternoon, wherever you are. And at the moment, Tina, what is in my mind is about this confusion we are having about the role, and the last two sessions told us about that a little bit. And when we say about business analysts as a role, it kind of encompasses business analysis in a very short way that we don't realize that's the whole business analysis definition. We have a very wider definition for business analyst that could be played not just for business analysts as a role or as a job profession or as a job position, but in a wider way. I'm calling that wider way a mindset. So I think we must talk about business analysis as a mindset to understand it more wide open. And for this session specifically, I think that we have the real same issue with product ownership analysis. We talk about product ownership analysis and we tie it very strongly with the product owner role. That's a specific role in a specific framework. So we are going to make this product ownership analysis very smaller than it could be. I think product ownership analysis could be used by a set of different roles and professionals, not just product owners in Scrum framework. I believe we are going to talk about that more widely, but I'm thinking very much about this mindset view versus the role view.
That's great, Fabrizio. Thank you. So mindset is on your mind at the moment. Althea, what would you like to tell us about? What are your interests and passions at the moment?
These days, I'm very interested in simplifying concepts for service delivery, so for service providers as well as customers and users. And I think also something even more than that interests me is learning the building blocks of what makes a memorable experience, because I think when something's stuck in your memory, it really drives long-term change, and it applies whether you're at home, whether you're at work, whether you're a consumer, whether you're a provider or a business analyst. So that's something that I'm reading up on a lot and thinking about on often.
That's so interesting. And I think there's something we can take there as business analysts. How do we make that experience of dealing with us as business analysts a memorable experience for our customers? So that's so interesting. I'll look forward to hearing some more about that. Thank you. Christina, what are you interested in at the moment?
Oh, thank you for asking this and not asking me about my background. So I think I have three main areas that I'm constantly focusing, at least in the last year, for example. And one is how to grow more and into how to grow the mindset for a PO. How do you build professional business analysts, and how do you build maybe professional product owners? What is behind this statement? So it's about growth, our growth, and my colleagues' growth. This is something that I'm really interested in, and I'm doing reading and researching. Another item, another topic that I'm very interested and actively involved, even in my company and the companies around where I have colleagues, is how to make the BA profession recognized and used to its potential. Because I know we are in 2021, soon to be 2022, but we still have companies where BA is not recognized and is not played to its potential. And I think there is a huge space here to cover. And yeah, this is something, this is the second topic that is on my mind. And like something which is more personal and comes from the project that I work on. I'm trying to find the balance between people, process, and product, because regardless if we are a BA or a product owner, we are still between these three points of the triangle, and this is never easy. This does not come with a recipe, and this is something that while trying to balance it based on, I don't know, experience, what I have read, but there is always something that we are missing from a communication point of view, from a technical point of view, or whatever. And this is I can name it a struggle or a challenge. So
Thank you, Christina. I really like that you've kind of envisaged it as a triangle there, people, process, and product, where classically in project management, we used to talk about the time, cost, and quality triangle. I think that people, process, and product is really relevant now. Thank you. And Lynn, what are you interested in at the moment?
Hi, thanks for having me on the panel. I think for those that know me, I've been working around the Agile and business analysis space for a number of years, but what's really floating my boat at the moment is the intersection between the Agile mindset and how it's applied to strategy, how it's applied to businesses and organizations to achieve strategic and business agility. How do we actually use that mindset, and how can we take that really holistic approach as a BA and apply that to the organizational constructs and think about the intersection between change, people's behaviors and characteristics, which is really something we want to see within the Agile mindset, and how we apply that to strategy, C-suite level execs, leadership. So it propagates all the way through the organization, not just within the engineering team. So that's what I'm working on at the moment.
A massive topic there, Lynn. I'm sure that's keeping you busy. I just want to mention that I'm going to be asking questions to the panel, but we want to really encourage you to submit your questions as well. Use this opportunity. You can use that via the Q&A function. I'm going to ask the first question to you, Lynn. And so far throughout the conference, we've been talking about the overlap in skills between business analysis and product ownership. What do you think are the key areas of similarity?
Oh my God, there's quite a lot actually, but I am going to focus on the similarities because I'm sure we can talk about the things where they're not similar afterwards. So I will try to keep myself focused on that. I think some of the similarities are around managing customer expectation. I think that's got to be key, similarity across both, and stakeholder management. You can't really do either of those roles without those skills. So I think that's key. Facilitation techniques, the ability to be able to understand and capture requirements, whether they, whatever format they be in, and be able to create some sort of backlog or repository of user needs that needs to be prioritized. That's a key sort of similarity between the two things. Can convey the product story. That's something as BAs we're often asked around the vision, but the actual story behind the product or the thing that we're trying to do. I think that's a real similarity that we need to hold and be able to hold that vision. And I think on top of that, really communication skills and those soft skills that we know and love that you have to have as a BA are absolutely key to both the product owner. So those are the ones that really stand out to me. I don't know what my fellow panelists think.
Yeah, does anyone else want to add their thoughts to that?
I could add something. I think BA and PO can really meet when it's about managing the backlog. Because I would say that it's really important that if you have both BA and PO in the same project, it's really important that they work together on that. And I think here the overlap is pretty big. And because of that, I like to see the challenges of two different roles working in the same area. And this kind of opens up another discussion. But definitely, I think they meet a lot in the area of managing the backlog, how to define the stories, who defines the stories, how do you accept the stories. And in this area where, once the requirements were set or established or clarified, then what do we do with them? And as Linda said, in the discussion, in the interview with the stakeholders, there is an overlap, but afterwards, I think there is even more. This is something I think they meet and work together.
Yeah, Althea, I think you were going to come in there.
Yeah, I echo what Christina just said. There's definitely a marriage between the two. And I think change enablement is one of those. I think both role players enable change, but almost I want to say in a different way. I think the angles that they're working from is different. So your BAs are going to understand and enable change, and they really get into the detail of things. That's why we're called analysts, right? But your product owner is coming from a different perspective. So from the outside in, I almost want to say, and being that reminder of what the vision is ultimately, and working backwards. But I think from BAs, we work from the detail upwards. Don't know if that makes sense.
It does indeed. And Fabrizio, do you want to highlight any things where you think that the roles are very different? You're on mute.
Sorry, am I okay now? Yes. The role of the product owner is very, very well defined in the Scrum framework. And the role of the business analyst may change very much from one organization to another organization. And so when we are talking about the difference about those roles, we should talk about what business analysts are we talking about. If we look to the last session when Deborah showed the framework for business analysis, we may have different business analysts acting in different places in the organization. A business analyst in an organization that is running Scrum could be a member of the team and helping the product owner to detail the requirements, or he could be a member of the strategy horizon, trying to identify what kind of initiatives should be relevant for that organization. Those are very different business analysts. They're both business analysts. And if we take the business analyst definition from the BA Book Guide, is anyone who is performing some business analysis task. So the product owner should be a business analyst as well by that definition. So when we are talking about the difference about the roles, we should start discussing what's the role of the business analyst in this organization, because it may depend. And when we bring that to a mindset, that's what I think most interesting at that time. I believe that there's a different mindset for product ownership and for business analysis. And so the product ownership mindset is about you have to engage in the success of the product, because the success of the product is your success and there's no other. So engage to it, commit to the product success, not to the project success, not to your area success, but the success of the product. That's the mindset for product ownership. And when we talk about business analysis mindset, we are talking about understanding needs before recommending solution and evaluating different alternatives for solutions. Those two mindsets can work together very well. And if I have a specialist in one mindset and in another mindset, I believe they can help each other. And in those practice that helps both mindsets, there are a lot of commonalities. There are a lot of practice that are common to the two mindsets. So when we are talking about, what are we talking about? Roles or mindsets? Those are the questions that I think we should ask before calling for differences and similarities. And if we are talking about roles, what is the role of the business analyst in your organization?
That's such a juicy point you made there, Fabrizio, because I sometimes forget that there are strategic business analysts because I don't meet them often. In my world, they are very rare, because when a project asks for a business analyst, it's normally somebody that's going to do the detailed analysis, the data analysis, the testing. So it's the finer details of getting the change over the line. Like honestly, whenever I have been in a role where there's a bit more strategy, the balance is on the tactical side of things. But I agree with you, there is that marriage of mindsets between the two roles. And if you can have them both, it's awesome. But again, I also think it depends on the space you're working in and the need of the project or the business. Otherwise, you can waste some good resources by having a PO when you do need a BA, or a BA when you need a PO.
Absolutely. Thanks, Elsia. When you mentioned, Christina, that POs and BAs can both be working in the product backlog space, do you see any differences between the roles when they're working together in that way?
Yes, I think the difference would come from the PO having this mindset that being this product, its life depends on me. And this comes like, if I set the vision wrong, then it's on me. So I think when it comes down to backlog, the product owner needs to bring the objectives to make sure that what's happening in there is aligned with the vision and the strategy for the product. While for the BA, it's important for the BA to understand, to align, to feel the vision and the strategy and work in that direction. And I think here it depends on how the process is defined, because for example, a PO can write the stories, the BA can write the stories, the team can write the stories. So here it's really up to how the team decide to work, but definitely how they end up defining that they are happy to work with the backlog. For example, if the BA is to create the stories, it doesn't mean that the PO and the team do not contribute, but it's just how they define the process to work and they are happy with that. Of course, we may have this, I don't know, maybe battle a little bit between agile and everybody sets their ways of working. But when we come down to compliance, to very strict regulations where you have to have proofs for everything, where you have to keep traces of your work, of your decisions, and so on, things get a little bit more complicated. But it's still about the process and how you define the process to make both people and compliance happy. And yeah, so I think the product owner comes first with the where we need or how we want to go in principle, and then the BA to follow that route and be careful with what ends up there in the backlog.
Lynn, perhaps I could ask you to build on that a little bit. And I also want to put to you a question that's been submitted, which is a bit of a loaded question, which is how can a BA work together with the PO without interfering with the PO's work? What do you think of that?
Gosh, there's so many things here. I'd like to come back, I think, a bit to what Fabrizio was saying, in that I think we need to be clear here that what we're doing is comparing a PO working in the product space with a product working in the product space. I think if we can't compare a product owner working with a BA strategically. So I think that's what we're focusing on. And I think that was a really good point that you made about that. So I think if we're in that space, then there's something else we need to consider as well. Is the product an internal product that's being delivered within what we call a cost center? Or is it a product that's being delivered and marketed and being sold outside, external, for a cost center? Because the roles are slightly different there as well. And I think there are different considerations that need to be at play. If I'm building a product as an organization, which I'm going to sell to the general public, or I'm going to sell as a service to the general public, as an app or some sort of service, then actually my customers lie outside my organization. And then I might want to use more marketing skills in order to understand my customers. If I'm building a product where I'm delivering that product and it's an internal use product, which I might get in an insurance company or within a bank or something like that, then actually I need to consider the processes and the business change within the organization where that product is going to be utilized. And therefore, I think and I would call that a cost center versus a profit center. If we're looking at the comparisons between those two roles when we're looking at an internal product, then actually I don't think it's possible for a PO, one PO or one person to have all of the skills necessary to manage all of that, both keep their eye focused on the product, the strategic direction it's going in and the vision, and actually look at holistic impact in terms of the change, the processes and all of the other things that product is going to impact, you know, the wider system of interest that product is going to have an impact in, versus if we're looking at a product which we're going to deliver external, you know, the actual business change aspects to the general public are not things that we necessarily would consider, other than looking at, you know, accessibility issues and things like that, and legality things and data, which we would do internally as well. So I think those are considerations that we need to compare and contrast when we're looking at these roles. And I think the other burning question that's always been there for me is one of accountability. You know, the product owner has different accountability to the business analyst. It's not a case of whether you have to have a business analyst. What you have to have is that you have to ensure that business analysis is done. And I think sometimes that's different to, is there a dedicated business analyst? I think whether you have a dedicated business analysis really comes down to size and complexity of the problem that you're trying to solve. If you've got a product owner and it's quite a small, self-contained, and you've got a really good development team and they have a lot of those skills, you don't need a dedicated professional business analyst, but you still need business analysis to be conducted. And I think that's the intersection that we often get confused about when we start battling around profession versus the skills that we need to do the job.
Thank you. So what about this inference about the BAs might be interfering with the PO's work? What's your reaction to that?
I don't think BAs, I mean, for me, if you're working in an agile way and you have an agile mindset, you should be collaborating. And, you know, and collaboration is very different to setting demands. For me, the business analyst, if you're working with a product owner, you know, when I've worked with product owners and product managers, when my staff have worked with product owners and product managers, I think it's really, really important that you become their critical friend. My job is to make sure they have all of the information so that they can make the informed decisions they need to make, because they are accountable at the end of the day, not you as the BA. So I think you have to make sure you're their critical friend. I sometimes joke with some of the product owners that I work with, I'm a bit like Jiminy Cricket from Pinocchio, like I'm their conscience on their shoulder, reminding them of all of those things. And I think that's a really important aspect. If you can play that role, you're never going to interfere. You're just going to be needed more and more.
We've had somebody raise a really interesting point in the chat. They said that in their organization, POs are more likely to be in managerial roles and BAs know the job to be done in more detail. So there's a kind of hierarchy implication there. Who would like to reflect on that?
I could add that the product owner has, as Linda said, some accountability that's higher than the business analyst. The job of the product owner is to take decisions. So when we say that he's responsible for the backlog management, it's not really that he had to write down the stories, but he had to take the decisions about the product backlog. And the business analyst, his duty is not just to make decisions, but it's to analyze. And so when someone asks if he's interfering in the job of the product owner, he should be influencing the product owner. So those decisions have to be taken based on some analysis, and that's the job of the business analyst. And as the product may be very complex, as Linda said very clearly, and have a lot of situations that must be analyzed, the product owners may need help to analyze all those situations, and that's the job of the business analyst.
That's interesting. And we've had a question which really kind of extends that, Fabrizio. It says, does the product owner need to convince the business analyst to add a new feature? Or the other way around? What if the business analyst thinks that something is needed that the PO will not find useful?
Well, the PO is the owner. That says it all. That's his decision. I would say the opposite, that the business analyst should try to convince the product owner, because the decision at the last call is for the product owner.
I think it raises a really interesting point, though, because some of the systems we work on are very broad, with a broad range of stakeholders interested in that final product. The product owner sometimes comes from a particular route within the organization, is perhaps not as interested in some of the other areas of the business that their system has to support. Does anybody have any experience of that, or any reflections that they want to show where the PO is perhaps not as representative as they could be?
I think that's where we have to support the PO, though. I think Fabrizio is absolutely spot on. They are accountable, and if you can't convince them that something that you think is important to them, then it's either not important or you've not done a very good job at convincing them. At the end of the day, the product owner's responsibility isn't just to care about the requirements. It's to look at architecture, it's to look at design, it's to look at all of the things that are going to deliver a feasible product. And it's all of those aspects. That doesn't mean that the product owner has to have all of those skills. And I think we misinterpret those things. The product owner's responsibility is to have a load of people around them that can provide that information to them so that they can make an informed decision. They can only make an informed decision if they're being informed of the right things. And our job as a business analyst is to give them the information so that they can make informed decisions. And I think it's literally as simple as that. So some of the shortcomings might be around architect. Well, that's the problem with the architect, that's not actually having that right conversation. Or maybe the product owner isn't asking the right questions. And again, the BA might be in a position to provide that consciousness and actually help them with some of the questions or the ways of asking the questions so that you become their critical friend in those discussions.
I would add. Sorry.
No, go for it.
This conversation relates in my mind. I remember something on a project when, if anyone in the team had an idea about a change in the product, which was not coming from the external client or from the product owner, we were asked, what's your business case? I mean, tell me, what are your arguments? How much does it cost? What is the impact? How does this change impacts us for the better? How can you prove that? And it was, at first we were a little bit annoyed, like, can't you see it's good? I mean, it's And the more we went through this exercise, it wasn't that formal, but it was the idea that we needed to convince the product owner and the team that what the team member was asking, it's well thought. It really proves that it will make a benefit for the product, you know. And I remained with this idea, like, if you want to change something, what's behind it? What's the reasoning behind? What are the arguments? What are the metrics? How do you know that you changed for the better? And yeah, this is an exercise I really love.
I think that's exactly right. We need to keep bringing the conversation back to business value, and it shouldn't be about trading opinions. It can easily come down to that. Now, there's a really interesting question been posed to us that the majority of IT projects fail because of the same reasons that we've been hearing for decades, and a lot of that failure is attributed to poor requirements. Now, you would think that a move to more agile ways of working would remove some of that. It doesn't seem to be. Agile projects can fail just as easily as other types of project. So what are the roles here in terms of product ownership and business analysis in getting past that poor requirements kind of accusation?
Can I take a stab at this? And I actually want to build on what Christina said earlier. That practice that a team builds, like it's going to depend on the team culture, the organizational culture as well. So in our space, our product is not for external consumers. It's for quite a huge internal customer base, which are employees. And what I found benefit in is actually starting to think a little bit with the product owner hat on. I'm not the product owner, because we often get requests for changes. And like Christina says, that thinking that would go into what is the value, what does it mean for this product over time, so that we can see the return on investment, and so that the customers are actually using this product on a daily basis because it's that type of product. So I think it depends how you're going to have a BA and a PO work together, collaborate on a project. It really depends on your team. You're going to struggle if your team is not accustomed to tackling things with that, with the right mindset, with that agile mindset of continuous improvement, then you're definitely going to struggle.
Thank you, Althea.
About the question, and you're sure, Christina, agile products may fail as traditional products. What we hope is that it fail faster, and so you can learn about that. And so as a business analyst, we should start to validate our assumptions earlier in a project, and we should state those assumptions as assumptions. So we are not sure about that. We have some hypotheses that we have to test. And as a product owner, we should prioritize those validations and think about ways that our product or our delivery, what we are delivering, can validate those hypotheses, and so we can take less risk while building a new product.
Thanks, Fabrizio. Somebody has kind of wants to go back to the concept of accountability that we've mentioned a few times. They said, who should the product owner be accountable to? Now, this is obviously going to depend a lot on the structure of organizations, but what are your kind of headline thoughts on that?
I was just reading that question, actually, so I'm glad you brought that up. So yeah, the product owner really should be responsible to the product owner doesn't necessarily replace a sponsor. So you should still have somebody who's accountable financially for the investment. And that generally shouldn't be the product owner. The product owner is responsible for the delivery of the product and not necessarily the investment that's being made, because the investment might be split across a portfolio. So while they're accountable for the product, they should be accountable to somebody who is responsible for the money. That might be a portfolio manager, but it should be a sponsor. There should be someone else in the business area or someone in the business that is sponsoring the work, and it shouldn't all fall onto the product owner.
Thanks, Lynn.
Some organizations have the role of the business owner, who is defining the business outcomes that the products should bring, and so the product owner should respond to that kind of executive that's defining the outcomes and the results that the business is expecting from the products.
And I guess you're right, because it depends on what methodologies they're following. So the business owner often comes from DSDM, or Agile Project Management Methods. There's other ones called Epic Owners and so forth, the product manager role in the Scaled Agile frameworks, for instance. So there are different ones. But I think this is a point that's worth making, is that, you know, Scrum is focused on one team. It looks at a team, one product, and that's what its focus is. When you start scaling that, Scrum on its own doesn't work. Yeah, the first rule of Scrum, and this is something that I want to come back to a little bit, the first rule of Scrum is, it says in there, Scrum is easy to understand yet difficult to master. And I think people look at it, and because it's written in such a simplistic way, they believe that it's actually easy to follow. Actually, it requires more discipline to follow Agile methods, not less discipline. And there is a role in there as well for the BAs. And I noticed somebody was talking about case studies earlier, so apologies for me hogging this, but I just wanted to make a point from earlier in that, you know, what can we do as BAs to actually help products be more successful in Agile? I'm an Agile coach. I've been coaching Agile teams in both Scaled Agile and non-Scaled Agile and a BA for many years. And one of the things that I have noticed with a lot of development teams or successful products or projects, whichever way you look at them, is generally the requirements are not articulated in the language of the customer. You know, one of the things that when me and Deborah wrote the book on Agile and business analysis, there was a whole chapter in there about goal decomposition versus functional decomposition. And when you break down high level requirements into the actual functional aspects, like layers of technology, then they end up being put inside a backlog as layers of technology. Now they have dependencies on one another. Now it's almost impossible to get early value or value delivered earlier, because now they're all tied into layers of architecture and so forth. And we lose context of what we're actually trying to achieve in the minimum viable. So where can BAs help? By keeping that context, by truly understanding the context and keeping the eye on what the functionality is from an MVP point of view or minimal marketable product, and make sure that translates all the way through the development backlog. So they haven't got a group of developers in the background worrying about Elasticsearch, but they don't know what they're doing Elasticsearch for. You know, those sorts of things. It's about, you know, Elasticsearch is part of the search functionality that will enable a customer to do X, Y, and Z, and that's part of the MVP. It's keeping that context live all of the time is critical. If we get wrapped up in the technical jargon of the development teams, we become part of the problem, not part of the solution.
Absolutely.
Great,
do you all feel like accountability, this question becomes even harder to answer because of the hybrid methodologies people are using? So you get a product owner, but you're not a Scrum team. You have a business analyst, but you're doing like half waterfall and half something else that is not even named. I find that is what creates confusion, is when somebody says, let's get a Scrum Master, but we're not practicing Scrum.
Very few people practice Scrum, to be honest. And most scaled methods are hybrids between a form of waterfall or V model and Agile anyway. It's very hard to have a very purist, even safe scaled Agile for the enterprise is actually a mechanism that enables hybrid working between waterfall portfolio management and Agile working. I think we can come back to some of the traditional mindsets here that hasn't gone away, and said accountability still has to lie where the money is. I don't think that has changed in Agile, whether it's in Scaled Agile or whether it's in Scrum.
Yeah, so hybrid is the word of the year then. Hybrid ways of working.
Yeah. I don't mix that up with work from home.
I think you pose a great question there, Althea, and I think Fabricio, you were talking about assumptions earlier. I think a lot of people are bringing a lot of assumptions to the words product owner, business analyst, and I think we need to talk more about all the assumptions that are being brought to teams, so that we don't have that confusion. There's a great question, which I'm sure there's a brilliant story behind this question. It says the product owner decides what will be developed. How involved should they be in the how, the designing the solution? What are your experiences or thoughts on that?
I'm happy to go first, sorry, and I'll let this is really interesting because part of the agile mindset is about intent-based leadership, and intent-based leadership is about stating the what, not specifying the how. If we get into how, we get into micromanagement, and that shouldn't belong within an agile culture. And I'll stop there and let the other panelists add to that.
Christina, what would you like to pick up?
Yeah, I was thinking more like, okay, the PO states what they want to achieve, but now who deals with the what? It is the team, right? But when we have a BA in the team and the BA starts digging for, coming again, you said what? Let me understand correctly. Let me make sure I understand the problem you are trying to solve. You know, the drill up front, trying to understand the requirements. And now I think more challenging is for the BA to know when to stop. With the digging, with the impact analysis, when you design the options, it is still in, you get into the how, you know. And I think here, based on my experience, this is a very fine line between where does the BA work end and where is the team, the architect, the dev team, they start their work, because we are a team. And if we involve the dev team and the architects later in the story, it's not okay, because they learn it late. You need to duplicate information. You need to re-say it again. They need to make their own image. So somehow you need to bring them into the story as early as possible. And now I find it challenging to differentiate between who does what. And I know it may sound old-fashioned, like roles and responsibilities, or how do we define where the product owner stops their requirements, or how they what they do, and where the others start doing it. And in the end, what I found out is specific to each team. So in the last 3 years, I worked on 3 projects, and there is no project where we have the same set of activities, even as BA or as a product owner or as an architect, that we do the same, we follow the same process. And once we understood that we need to define it as it fits us. And for example, as a PA in a project, the BA writes the stories, but in another project, the BA doesn't write the stories, but they only give the high level, the epic level, let's say, and the breakdown of the story is made by the team, because they have a different ways of seeing, and they also want to get involved. They feel value. So once they participate into this process, they feel valued, and it's the gain for the team. So yeah, maybe the BA, as I was used to do something in a way in a project, and now it looks like I made a step back, but it's not a step back. It's only that now I need to be adaptable and focus on this, and it's valuable. And then I need to work with the team and to engage with the team. And I think this is fascinating. This is really beautiful. I mean, we cannot get bored in this in this area.
I think that's such a good point. We can't go into our teams, our new projects, with that rigid, fixed idea of exactly what we're going to do and who's going to do it. It's got to be a conversation based on the skills and the makeup and the priorities of the team. There's a question which asks us around the kind of, is it more popular now to be a product owner? Do a lot of BAs want to move in that direction? And what's going on there? Who would like to talk about that?
It's sexier to be agile, right? And every name related to agile is sexy and fashion. Yes.
It's hard as well. That is the one lesson that I've learned this past few years. It takes a lot of work because it's behavior change as well. You constantly have to be reflecting on how you've engaged with somebody, how you've done your analysis. Was it right for that project? And then, like Christina says, you do the next project and you think you can do the same thing, but it's totally different because your stakeholders are different, your solution is different. So you really have to be so adaptable. But I love what Christina just said. You can never be bored in your job. You don't have to leave your business analyst job to work in an agile team. You don't have to become a product owner. You're still going to be adding value. And I don't think the business analyst role is going to disappear anytime soon.
I think there should be another question here as well. Should the BA become a product owner? And the reason I ask that is because if you're working, and I made that distinction earlier about working internally versus delivering products externally. If you're working on in an organization where you're delivering products for people to consume outside of your organization, then I think there is more of an overlap between business analysis and product owner, and somebody with BA skills could quite easily adopt the product owner role. However, I think if you are working inside an organization where you're delivering products internally, I don't think the BA should become the product owner. And the reason I say that is because in that context, the product owner is actually representative of the business itself. It should be a representation of the customer internally. And actually, if you haven't done that job, it's like saying, I'm going to be a product owner for a new internal bank system. If you've never been a bank teller, how can you represent that user group when you've never done that job? So I think we have to be really careful against this distinction about that's where the BA becomes the critical friend to that product owner who has the business understanding. And I think that sort of answers some of the question that's on that other one as well about where does the BA and PO sit in terms of the roles. Again, I think it depends on whether you're delivering internal products or you're delivering external products.
I think it's a great point, Lynn. So there may... No, go on, Althea.
Linda just triggered something. I remembered something you said the other day, Linda. You said the BA is a role and a profession and the product owner is a role. And that just stuck with me. I think even layering on top of that, it might be hard even for seasoned business analysts to transition into product ownership roles without doing some coaching, without doing a lot of reflective work, because you need to get out of that everyday in analysis mode headspace to focus on the vision of the product.
I totally agree. But there may be some people listening who are thinking about transitioning from a BA to PO role or opportunity. What advice might we give them?
I'm waiting for Fabrizio to drop some golden nuggets.
First one, rethink about staying where you are because it's a nice place. That's one. But I understand it depends on the context of your organization. So some organizations you don't have that opportunity. You have to change because that's what they are asking for. And so if you are changing from business analyst to product owner, try to understand what's the value of our product, engage on it, embrace the product, embrace the success of the product as is if it's your own. And I want just to come back from a question before when we were speaking about who does the what and who does the how. So the official response for that is that the product owner does the what and the developers does the how, but actually product ownership analysis should be as a mindset being the whole team. So the whole team should do all that together. And there's no good definition of what without considering the how. So they should do that together. Of course, the product owner is responsible for the requirements or for the product backlog, but it should be a group responsibility. We should avoid creating walls where there should be not a wall. We decided to go to teams and squads and whatever we are calling that, focus on products to break the walls. And so don't come back to the old old-fashioned way of thinking that there should be a wall and someone will throw the requirements over this wall. That won't work. We will fall in the same problems we had in the old-fashioned way of building.
I think that's a great myth there that you are dispelling, which needs to be discussed, because Scrum doesn't talk about a development team. Scrum just says the team. And the team is defined as the people with the skill sets required to deliver the product. It doesn't say developers. It doesn't say testers. It doesn't say designers. It doesn't say business analysis. It says the team must consist of a set of people whose combined skill sets are the skill sets required to deliver the product. And that's why they brought in the concept of self-organizing teams, of generalizing specialists, because if you put all of the skill sets you need into individual roles into a team, one tester, 3 developers, 1 BA, what you'll have is some people that are sitting there twiddling their thumbs because they aren't being utilized full-time, 5 days a week, and cannot be fully utilized. Therefore, we need people to be able to work across those skills. That doesn't mean that business analysis isn't needed. It doesn't mean that, the skills of the business analysis aren't, incumbent in the product owner. If we go back to having the business analyst does that and hands it to the developer, as Fabricio says, we'll end up with these handoffs. And that's exactly what Scrum has tried to avoid with this concept of a team. And we don't want to be part of that problem. So it's not really about, our role starts or stops here. We use our experience and development in order to enhance and develop the product as a collective. And some of the techniques that I've used when embarking on teams as well is using Team Canvas. I don't know if anybody's used a Team Canvas. Team Canvas, my cats arrived. Team Canvas is really good tool to actually bring the team together to talk about what the individuals themselves bring, what skills they bring to the team, and what value they bring to the team, and what do they want to get out of it personally, and helps the team collectively think about the collective goal, not think about what do they bring to the table individually, defined by role titles, which actually becomes quite a negative force inside a team, I believe. Oh, I know.
I think that's a great point, Lynn, because I think sometimes we forget to treat people like humans and acknowledge that they've joined an organization or a team to get particular skills, to get particular experience. We don't give people the opportunity to talk about those things. We kind of focus on the product goal or the project outcomes, but actually there's lots of things that those team members are trying to achieve as well. And bringing that conversation up front, I think probably really powerful in setting the expectations and giving everybody the best opportunity to contribute to that team. That's really interesting.
There's some good material actually called product chartering. I can't remember who wrote the book, but there's some books on product chartering, and it takes how it takes the team all the way through the product development together. There's a really good set of things and toolkits in there to be utilised as well.
That's a great tip. Thank you. There is one thing that I want to a statement which I don't think is going to get general agreement that's been submitted as a question. It says, can we say that the PO knows the technical product and the BA knows the business?
I would argue against that, because I think it depends again. If you're delivering products internally, the PO is the business representative. They are your Uber customer, and the BA therefore has the ability to do the BA work, which is whatever that is, whether it's in the technical detail or whether it's in process modeling, doesn't matter. It's using the BA toolkit then to support that. And definitely the PO should be the customer representation. However, if you're delivering technical products which you're selling externally, I could see how the PO may have labelled the technical knowledge of the product. But then I think you're more into product management as well, and ownership, more than the role that was really defined within Scrum, I think.
So something else that I want to put to this group is that the IIBA have just launched its certification in product ownership analysis. So how does this tie into product ownership being a role or an activity?
I can see Lynn's the wheels in her mind are turning.
I can talk about that a little bit, because I took that certification, And by the way, IIBA is putting the product ownership analysis, it's wider than the role. It's focused on the whole team or a whole product team that's working in the development of a product. It could be a developer, it could be a business analyst, it could be a product owner, a product manager, or someone who is working in marketing area of the product. So it's a wider concept than just the role concept of the product owner.
Thank you. Althea, was there something you wanted to add there?
I am really going to take that one away that Fabrizio has now said for the second time, that whole team product ownership mindset. I love that. And I think it's awesome that new certifications are being developed. I mean, you can't lose learning new things. So if you wanted to take it up, or if you are in a space where there's lots of learning, you have opportunity to enrich your experiences on a day-to-day, take advantage of that as well.
I think we get too hung up on role titles. I really think they become very damaging in that people we want, and while I agree that business analysis is a profession, I don't think that's the same as a role. And I think people get really, really hung up on these things, and it becomes very damaging to working in an agile way in terms of that team collaboration. So I think role titles can create barriers sometimes. I think we need to look and really focus on the skills that we need to achieve the job that we're trying to do, and not focus on the role. I bet every single one of you here in this conference has multiple roles, and every single role that they've been in, they've used either a different set of skills or they've grown further skills that they didn't have before. If we were all defined by a role, then we wouldn't have that breadth of skill, would we? So we all bring something different to the table, and I think we have to recognise that. Also, one of the lean wastes that they introduced years ago was underutilization of skill. So I think we have to differentiate the fact that people bring a level of maturity and skill and understanding to the table, whereas roles are very clearly defined and bounded, and we don't want to mix those two things up.
If we were all bound by our titles, none of us would have a job, because they change so often.
Yeah.
I have to share a phrase that I picked up about a year ago, which is TACO Agile, which stands for Titles and Ceremonies Only, which I think is so interesting. And I think the conversation that we're having today, which is about seeing the whole person, embracing their knowledge and skill set, really allows you to move away from that fixed idea of titles and ceremonies, which is so endemic within Agile teams. We have not very many minutes left, but I do want to take some time to reflect on the conversation that we've had today. We've covered a lot of topics. Can I ask each of you to just maybe reflect on a discussion and identify some of the key themes or messages that have stood out for you? Christina, could I ask you to kick us off?
Yeah, I'm not on mute. The takeaways. It's really about understanding the mindsets and be okay with them. Embrace collaboration as opposed to anything else. There is no other option but collaboration. Yes, insist on profession, on skills, on knowledge, on the content, and not on the form, because it is not the form which defines us. We define the form afterwards. And I think we should not give up. I mean, we should have always in our mind, on the back of our mind, what's the value? Why do I do this? And then the rest comes naturally.
Thank you. That's a great point. Fabrizio, what are some of your reflections on our conversation today? You're on mute.
No,
no, you're okay. You're okay.
I learned something. So first one, try to learn something and learn it fast. So that's agile. Try to think it in an organized way and structured way, understanding the needs and what alternatives of solutions you have. That's business analysis. And try to embrace the product that you are working on and commit with that and be responsible for that, because that's the product ownership analysis way of thinking. So don't get too tied to roles, because roles change very fast. So roles are waves that are changing all the times, and methodologies are changing. But those mindsets that we are talking about, agile mindset, business analysis mindset, product ownership analysis mindset, they're more stable. So if you can bring that to your way of thinking, I think you can be a better professional. And it's not, I have this role, so I need to have this mindset. All those three mindsets work very well together. And so you can bring that to your skill sets or to your mindset.
Thank you, Althea. It relates to your point about wearing a hat rather than telling yourself that you're in a particular role. What are your reflections?
I think if the roles throw you off sometimes, or if somebody in your team annoys you because they are scratching in your salad, as they say where I come from, if they are trying to do your work and you are like, let me do my job, sometimes have that conversation. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I think more importantly, if you look at what the team needs to accomplish today, tomorrow, next week, next month, and then you go, okay, who's available, who's got hands on deck, and who is great at these tasks that we need to finish. That's a better way to sometimes look at it, instead of going, let's take all these tasks here, it's business analyst task, give it to Althea, because then Linda's going to be sitting doing nothing, and we could be using her capacity. So less stress all around.
That's so great. Thank you. I'm going to write down that phrase, scratching in each other's salad. I'm not familiar with that one. In the UK, we would say treading on each other's toes, which I think is probably a similar idea. Yeah. Lynn, what are your key themes and takeaways from our discussion?
Well, it's been a fantastic discussion, so thank you for that. I think my key takeaways and themes really is that business analysis is way wider than product development, and we need to remember that and recognize that. There's always going to be a need for analysis, but there's not necessarily always a need for a business analyst in a role, dedicated within a development team. And being an agile BA isn't about writing user stories. It's not being associated with a development team. It's about applying the agile mindset in all of the activities that you do as an analyst, whether you're working strategically or whether you're working with a development team in a development team. You can be agile in the way you collaborate and work with people. I can only be an agile BA if I'm working with an agile development team. I think that's a bit of a myth as well. So those are my key takeaways.
Thanks, Lynn. Now, we all started our discussion today by saying what we were passionate about and enthusiastic about. I'd like to continue that theme of optimism and ask you, what are you optimistic about in this space that we've been discussing today, product ownership, analysis, and agile? Lynn, perhaps if I could get you to carry on that theme. What are you optimistic about?
I'm optimistic that we don't see product ownership as a threat and that we have to jump ship, that we can work in harmony and build on the skill sets and the different perspectives by which we work together. I'm very optimistic about that for the future.
That's great. I think we have to be. Althea, what are you feeling optimistic about?
You'll never be bored. That is what excites me.
I think that's great. Building on the point that you made, Christina, about not expecting every project to be the same. And in fact, if every project was the same, we wouldn't be learning anymore. And I am a firm believer that if you're not learning anything, then you're not really a business analyst. You've kind of morphed into some other role within the organization. Thank you. Fabrizio.
I believe that people can engage better when they can see the outcomes that they're working on, and working in a product independent of the role you're playing off. If you have this product mindset, and if you're working in a team that is building something that's going to be valuable for someone else, for some clients or some customers or internal customers, don't matter. But if you engage that creates a motivation for those who are working, not just accomplishing tasks, but building something bigger, something who has a purpose. And that's very motivating, that's very inspiring.
I agree. Thank you. And Christina, what are you looking forward to? What are you optimistic about?
I'm super optimistic that the PO and the BA can be great friends, and they will be, and they are, and they can work things together. I'm super optimistic about that.
That's brilliant. Well, we've certainly got a lot to look forward to, and hopefully everybody will take a lot from the rest of the conference and help them when they go back to their day jobs, help them implement some of the things that we've talked about. I think there's so much to learn from this conference lineup. Thank you so much to this wonderful panel. It's been an absolute delight speaking to you, and thank you to our audience as well. We've loved the engagement through the Q&A and the chat. It's been absolutely brilliant to hear about what you find interesting and what you want to know more about. So thank you so much again to the panel. Enjoy the rest of business analysis at BA Istanbul, and have a lovely conference. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Goodbye.
you very much.
Thank you so much. Şimdi Huva Ajansı'ndan ulaşabileceğiniz 2 farklı oturumumuz başlıyor. Oturumların birinin adı Agile Bakery isimli workshopumuz olacak. Diğer oturumda ise BA Works ekibinin geliştirdiği dünyanın ilk Business Analysis Metaverse yer alacak. Her iki oturuma erişmek için de Zoom uygulamasından çıkmanız gerek ve Huva'daki linklere tıklamanız gerekmektedir. Ve bu şekilde ilgili oturumlara ulaşabilirsiniz.
Justified, wish I could let it go.